I call the meeting to order. Good evening, and welcome to the November 4th, 2025 business meeting of your Ashland City Council. Councillor Dale will offer the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mayor. We acknowledge and honor the Aboriginal people on whose ancestral homelands we work, the Akira-Kutsum Band of the Shasta Nation, as well as the diverse and vibrant Native communities who make their home here today. We honor the first stewards in the Rogue Valley and the lands we love and depend on, tribes with ancestral lands in and surrounding the geography of the Ashland watershed include the original past, present, and future indigenous inhabitants of the Shasta, Takelma, and Athabascan people. We also recognize and acknowledge the Shasta village of Quakaka, where the crow lights, that is now the Ashland City Plaza.
Thank you. And Councillor Kaplan will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Sherrill,
Here.
Dale,
Here.
Bloom,
Here.
Mayor Graham,
Here.
Kaplan,
Here.
Duquesne,
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Thank you. For mayor's announcements, the first is if you have come this evening to speak with the council, the way you will do that is by signing up with a sheet that is up on the back wall. Please fill it out and put it in the tray right at the front here by the city recorder's desk. Please make sure when you fill it out that you indicate whether you are here to speak to us on a specific agenda item, or if you are here to speak to us during public forum, which is when you would bring up any issues that are not on the agenda. Doing so allows us to make sure that we get you up to the podium at the appropriate time in the meeting. The other announcement is that one of our agenda items that is currently sitting on the consent agenda, the request to begin surplus property process for the Imperatrice property, is going to be pulled this evening, and we are going to have it as a new business item at a future gathering so that the whole community can understand the process that we're going through and we can see a presentation about that. So with that, we will move on to approval of minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? Okay, the floor is open for a motion to approve the minutes. Councillor Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the minutes of October 20th, 21st, and October 7th as presented in the packet.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Sherrill.
Yes.
We are down to the consent agenda, and recall that we have removed item C. So the floor is open to if anyone, councilor would like to remove any items. Councillor Hanson.
Yes, I'd like to remove letter D, please.
Okay. Councillor Duquesne.
I wanted to question D as well.
Okay. So that item will move to the end of our agenda where we take up any items that have been removed or moved from the consent agenda. So it'll move to unfinished business. That leaves two items, A and B, on the consent agenda. The floor is open for a motion to accept. Councillor Bloom.
Move approval of the remaining items on the consent agenda.
Second?
Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Dale,
Yes.
Bloom,
Yes.
Kaplan,
Yes.
Duquesne,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes, Mayor.
Sherrill.
Mayor,
Yes.
can we speak to that really quick?
Not to the consent agenda.
Okay.
It has to be pulled in order to speak to it.
Sherrill.
Yes.
Okay, we are now to our public hearing space, or excuse me, public forum. Do we have people who've signed up for public forum? And if you've signed up for public forum to speak to us this evening, the way you will do that is by coming up to this podium and the mic. If you have mobility issues and need to have a mic brought to you, we're happy to do that. You'll see a light indicator next to your microphone there that will give you a green light if you still have time. Councilors? It'll give you a green light if you still have time. It'll move to yellow when you have 20 seconds left, and it will go to red when your time is done. It will also be accompanied by a beep at the 20-second point, so when you first hear that beep, you still have time. But when your light goes to red and you hear the second beep, please complete the sentence that you're on so we can move on and hear the next person who's come to speak to us this evening. We have... We have 5 people who have signed up to speak to us this evening on public forum, so that means each person will have 3 minutes. Please come up in the order that I call. Tell us your name and the city in which you reside before you begin your testimony. Debbie Neiswander, followed by Jason Hauk, George Kramer, Lita Shapiro, and Mary Dorsch, or Tish. Go ahead and pull that down so that you can speak directly into it.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please,
Awesome.
please go ahead.
Okay, my name is Debbie Neiswander, and I live in Ashland, 29 years now. So for the last year, we've been talking about exclusion and exclusion zones, and it's been a very depressing year for me. So I want to talk about inclusion and why inclusion is important. So inclusion is important because it fosters a sense of belonging, value, and respect for all individuals, leading to a more just and cohesive society and driving numerous benefits in educational, social, and professional environments. Benefits for individuals, and I'm speaking about my houseless friends. It boosts self-esteem and well-being. Feeling valued and part of a community is essential for individual mental health and self-esteem. Social exclusion can lead to loneliness, anxiety, and depression. It enhances social and communication skills. Inclusive environments encourage interaction among a broad range of people, which improves social skills and helps break down stereotypes and prejudices. It promotes personal growth and confidence. When people feel empowered to contribute and be their authentic selves, they gain confidence and are more likely to pursue self-improvement and take on new challenges. It also fosters empathy and understanding. Interacting with individuals from diverse backgrounds helps cultivate mutual understanding, compassion, and the ability to see the world from different perspectives. So, inclusion is crucial because it unlocks the full potential of all people, leading to a more vibrant, productive, and equitable world for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jason Hauk. My address is Ashland, and I help organize the Ashland Community Piecemeal. And I wanted to take this opportunity to let people know what's happening with the food insecurity here as we're approaching our first week, approaching our first week into EBT and WIC cuts hitting our most vulnerable communities, and we're seeing incredible increases in the folks using our food resources. The Ashland Community Food Bank is welcoming record numbers of new households and also seeing those people using those services more often. We're also seeing an increase folks coming to our community meals. We're already seeing a lot of new faces. And of course, we're serving not just the homeless, but many house folks that just don't have enough food. And we know that hunger lives in the moment, and right now, too many people are going hungry, going the whole day without a solid meal. We served over around 60 people this Thursday and Friday. On Monday, Kathy's team is delivering at least twice that many meals throughout Ashland. The other meals, Uncle Food's Diners, the folks doing the Wednesday and Saturday meals, all witnessing increases in need. At our first Sunday breakfast just the other day, we served close to 50 souls. We served every bite. We had a pregnant woman that came late and was very grateful for the last bites of oatmeal and fruit. And when that food ran out, grown men literally wept. It is a struggle, and it's real as thousands of us are forced to do more with nothing. But we're a community that looks out for each other and for our neighbors. And right now, our Ashland Community Food Bank, our food rescue and daily meal programs, are supported by the community. And right now, your support can go further than ever. They all need volunteers, they all need resources, and right now they really need money because traditional support is just not there. We are grateful to our community sponsors, Southern Oregon Jobs with Justice, Ashland Lions Club, and the Mountain Meadows Community Foundation, who are partnering with us to host this year's Community Thanksgiving meal. It'll be our 10th year facilitating this free meal. We expect well over 300 guests. We will be at the Presbyterian Church from 11 to 1. Everyone's invited. And Friday, we'll be right back in the park, 3:30 p.m. At the gazebo, feeding people and making space for the food insecure and our community partners. We welcome everyone regardless of household, their housing and income. We're a community that looks out for each other. And from the city, just appreciate your continued support. Look forward to the reopening of community buildings, getting people back inside. We have a lot of support, a lot of volunteers, a lot of community wanting to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm George Kramer. I live here in town. First of all, as you probably know, last night the City Council decided that we had to go out and collect petition signatures to give ourselves a voice on new fees and taxes on our utility bills. And I have that petition here. We've been out collecting them today, and the response has been great. So perhaps I owe you a vote of thanks for making this a more public issue. I'd like to thank the mayor for honoring the City Council rules last night when my reputation was maligned by one of you incorrectly. I'd like to talk about why we're doing this. If you all ask us for a property tax levy, we vote on it before it takes effect. If you all want to modify the food and beverage tax as you're considering, we will vote on it as it takes effect, before it takes effect. Fees on our utility bills unrelated to our utilities are currently your decision without sufficient input from the public. This petition would put an amendment to our charter on the ballot in May that would allow the City Council to propose new taxes and fees on our utility bills, but would give the public that pays them the ability to confirm or reject that decision. I think that's democratic. I'm disappointed that only 3 of you agreed with me last night, but so be it. We will go out and collect those petitions. If people want to participate, you can email me at george@preserveoregon.com. You can search me on social media. You can search the other people that are behind this effort. And together, this community will put on the ballot what you refused to do. And I have every expectation we will collect the 1,308 signatures we need to put it on the May ballot. I have every expectation that your refusal to do so will reflect on you and your lack of interest in this community's input and how you spend our money. Again, my email is george@preserveoregon.com. You can help us deliver petitions, submit or collect petitions. I can email you the digital sign-up sheet, and you can email that or mail that back to me with an original signature. And we expect to have this done by the end of January at the deadline that is set by the clerk. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and pull that down. There you go.
Always. Hi, my name is Lita Shapiro. I live in Ashland. I'd like to speak tonight about the upcoming December 1st retreat. Right now, we have little information about the format or whether it will be facilitated. Because of budget's unsustainability and complex issues, these details about the retreat are important so everyone can understand exactly what's driving the problem. I hope the retreat will focus squarely on our overspending. The city's financial management policies and procedures manual given to the Budget Committee is clear, but often ignored. It requires multi-year budget projections extending 3 years beyond the biennium. Councilors have asked for this repeatedly, yet it still hasn't been done. I'd like to know if this is going to be part of the discussion about what's caused our financial challenges. In the city manager's recent video, she referred to services as they relate to a sustainable budget. Given the recent service cuts, that sounds like more reductions ahead rather than a look at how to operate more efficiently. The retreat is an opportunity for council to lead by asking staff to prepare a revised budget showing how specific efficiencies could improve our outlook. For example, freeze new hires, require transparent projections, and ask each department to identify 10% savings without reducing essential services. These efficiencies exist if you look for them. If council directs staff to find reductions instead of relying solely on higher revenues, we could move toward a sustainable budget, and even maybe free funds for real community needs like the food bank grants. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to make sure that you're speaking at this point about an item that's not on the agenda.
Oh, yeah, and I didn't want to speak except on the public hearing for the annexation of the properties. on
Okay,
99.
it was, yeah, there was a little bit of a misunderstanding, so
Yeah.
we'll call you back up.
Thank you.
Thank you. So before we move into the public hearing, I just want to make sure that the public knows that the City of Ashland has been working with our community partners to make sure that everyone knows where food supplies are during this time where the federal government is not putting money on the cards of the people who desperately need it for food. At the same time, if you are a person with low income and you require assistance with your utility bill, please go online. There's information about how you can sign up to have assistance with your utility bill. And I just encourage everyone who can to provide and to donate what you can, either in particular foodstuffs or in money to help the people who are not having their needs met in our community at this point. Hopefully, the reality of what this looks like will spur people to come to the table and create a solution. But in the meantime, we need to take care of each other here in Southern Oregon. So thank you. We'll move on now to public hearings. The first one is a public hearing and first reading of Ordinance 3272, an ordinance annexing property and withdrawing an annexed area from Jackson County Fire District Number 5, and also repealing Ordinances 3215 and 3194, which were the previous annexation approvals in Casita 1 and Casita 2. Parentheses 1511 Highway 99, Planning Action Number PA-T3-2024-00011. So I call this hearing to order. The public hearing is now open for planning action number PA-T3-2024-00011 at 1511 Highway 99, a request for annexation approval and zone change of an 8.53 acre property and adjacent right-of-way and railroad property. The application also includes concurrent outline and final plan approval for a performance standards option PSO subdivision and site design review for 10 apartment buildings and associated site improvements which have been approved by the Planning Commission contingent upon the approval of the annexation. Annexations are approved through a Type 3 legislative planning action. Type 3 planning actions are reviewed by the Planning Commission, which makes a recommendation to City Council. The Council makes final decisions on legislative proposals through enactment of an ordinance. It is a quasi-judicial land use proceeding and requires the observance of certain procedural formalities. The Council must take a few moments to cover some preliminary matters and required statements. Generally, the following procedure will be used in this hearing: preliminary matters and required statements, staff report, applicant presentation, oral testimony from the public, for or against, advice from legal counsel and staff, and application rebuttal, at which point we will close the public hearing and have council deliberation and decision. If you wish to participate in this hearing, including challenges for bias, prejudgment, or conflict of interest, you must complete the yellow speaker request form located at the back of the room and deliver it to the city recorder. Please do so immediately. Any challenges will be addressed after reading the required statements. The applicant is allowed a total of 10 minutes. Others wishing to speak are allowed 5 minutes. When recognized by the presiding officer, please come forward to the podium, give your name, and summarize your arguments. Councilors may ask questions of staff and participants without affecting time limits. Do any members of the council wish to abstain, declare a conflict of interest, or report any ex parte contact on this matter? Councilor Kaplan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I want to report ex parte communication from Marty Eldridge on September 18th. When I received an email from him requesting a meeting regarding an opportunity for a second emergency exit for the Ashland Mine neighborhood. I responded to Mr. Eldridge, declining to meet and passing that information on to Brandon Goldman and Kelly Burns with respect to that request. I don't think that this ex parte communication in any way influences my decision-making on this matter.
Any other ex parte communication or conflicts of interest? Okay. Any person has the right to rebut the substance of the evidence or information disclosed. Please present your rebuttal evidence on the substance of any ex parte contacts during the normal time allowed for testimony, which has been established for this proceeding. Please reduce any bias, conflict of interest, and prejudgment challenges to writing with supporting evidence and provide these to the city recorder. Do we have any written challenges to members of this hearing body for bias, prejudgment, or conflict of interest? City Recorder? No. Okay. So we are to the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor Graham, Council. Brandon Goldman, Community Development Department Director, and with me is Aaron Anderson, Senior Planner. As the Mayor mentioned in her introduction, the application before you tonight is the annexation of an 8.53 acre piece of property in the adjacent right-of-way, including Highway 99 abutting the front of the property and the railroad corridor along the back of the property, or south of the property. Presently presented before you is concurrent approval requests for both an annexation and zone change from the existing rural residential 5-acre minimum zone to an R2 multifamily residential zone. Additionally, outline and final plan approval through what's called a performance standard subdivision, which includes 9 individual lots and 1 common open space, as well as site design review for 10 buildings, 10 apartment buildings comprised of a total of 210 one-bedroom or studio units. Of those units, 160 of the units are less than 500 square feet, and 50 of the units proposed are just over 500 square feet. That's of specific note because the affordable housing requirements stipulate that affordable housing units need be a minimum of 500 square feet, and as such, the application was amended from a prior application to increase the size of the affordable units, which are distributed throughout each of the 9 buildings proposed, or 10 buildings proposed. As I mentioned, there were 2 prior annexation approvals for the same site. and similar developments, both in 2019 and 2022. These were appealed to the Land Use Board of Appeals at the state and remanded primarily over parking exceptions, street improvements, and affordable housing unit size standards. In response to those remands from LUBA, Land Use Board of Appeals, the city amended the land use ordinance, and additionally, state climate-friendly and equitable community rules were established that remove parking requirements. Further, the applicant that's before you tonight is a new application, but in preparing that application, the applicant has modified the prior proposal to ensure all affordable units now meet the 500 square foot minimum, allowing the 2024 application to proceed under the existing updated standards that are in place at the point the application was submitted. The Planning Commission did have a public hearing on this on May 13th, and they adopted findings with recommended conditions of approval on July 22nd, 2025. Some of those recommended conditions of approval included a list of items that they felt should be resolved prior to it coming to the council for this hearing, namely survey issues in terms of appropriate legal descriptions, a boundary line adjustment being approved through the county prior to coming before you this evening. I can say that each of those Planning Commission recommended conditions before review by council have now been met. And so, again, the Planning Commission had a number of findings in their document, which was included in your packet, but I did want to read a couple relating to their recommendation for approval of both the type 1 site review for the apartment complex and the recommendation to approve the annexation. Specifically, the Planning Commission finds that the proposal complies with all applicable provisions of the underlying zone, including but not limited to building and yard setbacks, lot area dimensions, density and floor area, lot coverage, building height, building orientation, architecture, and other applicable standards. The proposal complies with the applicable overlay zone requirements, site design and use standards of Part 18.4, and that adequate capacity of city facilities for water, sewer, electricity, and storm drainage and transportation can and will be provided. The Planning Commission further found that the proposal meets the affordable housing requirements articulated in Ashland Municipal Code 18.5.8.050, with 24 one-bedroom units restricted to 80% area median income and below, and each of those units meeting the 500 square foot minimum and distributed throughout the project development with the comparable design and materials to the market rate units. And lastly, again, I'm not going through all of the commission findings, but I think that these may be part of the discussion tonight. The commission also found that it satisfied the requirements for affordable housing in terms of the total number, size, and distribution of the affordable units to meet or exceed the required proportion of the base density. So as I noted, all the multifamily unit design standards were evaluated by the Planning Commission and found to meet. They also evaluated the public facilities and access requirements and found that those were met or would be met through development of the project. Additionally, they evaluated the transportation impact analysis that was included in your packet and found that through the developments proposed for enhancements to the street frontage and the enhancements for pedestrian and bicycle connectivity along Highway 99, the transportation impact analysis or traffic impact analysis demonstrate compliance with our standards. So in terms of the annexation requirements, again, those have separate approval criteria. The Planning Commission, in reviewing it, found that it met the applicable criteria, namely the properties within the urban growth boundary, that the R2 zoning and multifamily use designation are consistent with the property's comprehensive plan multifamily designation. And essentially what that is recognizing is that when the city identified its long-term build-out, it established an urban growth boundary for where the city will grow and established what types of uses would be most appropriate in those land areas. So this specific property, since the inception of our comprehensive plan, since I believe 1969, has been designated to come into the city as multifamily zone land. And so the Planning Commission found that that was met. Additionally, the Planning Commission found that the annexed area is contiguous with the city limits via Highway 99 and the railroad right-of-way, that the public facilities, water, electric, storm, sewer, via the Rogue Valley Sanitary Sewer, were deemed adequate by our Public Works Department and found acceptable by the Planning Commission. The transportation impact analysis, as I noted previously, that's contained in the application, demonstrated that there was adequate capacity on Highway 99 to accommodate the transportation impacts and the street improvements to accommodate developments and traffic generation. As I noted, the ODOT jurisdiction, Highway 99 is within ODOT's jurisdiction, and so they do have standards for improvements, and they have reviewed those, the proposal of the application, and have demonstrated that once built out to as proposed, that it would meet their standards both for sidewalks, transit pull-out, rapid flashing crossings at Schofields. I would note that there was an exception to our street standards for the trestle area to go underneath the railroad overpass, as there is a physical constraint there in terms of the existing railroad property. So it would truncate down at that moment and then widen back out. Additionally, there are natural resources on the site, namely a 0.1 acre wetland. The applicant has identified that area and included a 20-foot buffer around it so that it will remain undisturbed. The Department of State Lands has reviewed that component and provided concurrence that, or we've requested that DLCD provide a concurrence with that wetland delineation prior to the development moving forward. That has been provided in both the 2019 and 2022 application. And typically those DSL concurrences are valid for a 5-year period. So it's our expectation that when development begins, if it begins relatively soon, that those concurrences would be valid at this point. And lastly, I'd note that the minimum density requirement, which we established for properties coming in from the urban growth boundary to ensure that our city builds efficiently, is met by this requirement. That requires that 90% of the base density for the area be developed, that an applicant has to meet that threshold for annexing property to the city. And the Planning Commission and staff's evaluation found that this application, with the boundary line adjustment that was done and the portion staying outside the city limits, the portion being annexed does meet the 90% base density. And with that, staff recommends council approval of Ordinance 3272, annexing the property, with the conditions of approval that the Planning Commission provided in the written findings in your packet. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron Anderson, our senior planner, as he has some slides that illustrate materials that are within your packet to show the subject property, the vicinity, as well as building designs that were included for the 210-unit housing development. With that, Aaron?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Pleasure to be before you again. Once again, my name is Aaron Anderson. I'm a senior planner in the Community Development Department. This slide shows the location of the project, which is at the north end of town, next to the city limits and within the UGB. These are the two parcels as they were prior to the lot line adjustment that Brandon has mentioned, and this shows that portion which is proposed to be annexed. The property line adjustment had been pending in the county and was actually only just recorded today, and this shows the previous lot line and the newly recorded lot line for that portion of property to be annexed into the city. This slide shows that same portion of private property and the adjacent railroad and ODOT right-of-ways that are to be annexed. And then just a summary of the numbers that really Brandon already mentioned. The total acreage is 19.4, 8.5 of which is private land, including the railroad and ODOT right-of-ways. 9 lots in the subdivision plus 1 open space area, on which there will be 10 buildings, 21 units each for a total of 210 one-bedroom units, and 24 of those units are guaranteed to be at 80% area median income as affordable deed restricted. This is an aerial image of the subject property. You can see that it is north of the railroad line and south of the highway, and it's being highlighted here with the laser pointer. This is the preliminary subdivision plat. You'll notice that these are 2 buildings that are on a single lot. So while there are 10 buildings, it is 9 lots in the open space. This is the overall site plan, including the parking areas. You can note that there's pedestrian connectivity throughout. This is the wetland here that Brandon mentioned. Storm drain retention facilities. These are recreational amenities. And then again, pedestrian facilities that connects to newly installed civil improvements along the highway. And there are 2 main vehicle access points. And this is from the site plan, including all of the landscaping plans, showing the proposed plantings. And then finally, the building designs, which are identical. And this shows what would be the downhill side, pardon me, the uphill side to the buildings, and then the downhill side. The lowest floor has 3 units each, and then the second and third floors are identical with 7 units each. Pardon me. So here's the lowest floor with the 3 units. And then again, the second and third floors are virtually identical, with the exception that the center unit has a slightly different entryway between the outer ones, and that plays into the greater than 500, smaller than 500 square foot issue that Brandon mentioned for the affordability.
And if I could note, the second and third floor have 9 units on each floor.
Thank you. Sorry for catching that number wrong. With regard to the affordable housing standards, there is one exception that is requested. The Planning Commission is not able to grant this exception because it falls to City Council. But the regulations regarding phasing were really crafted in mind with single-family developments and not a multifamily development where the affordable units are meant to be spread throughout all of the buildings. And I've highlighted the section here that is problematic to meet. And with the proposal to have the affordable units spread through all 10 buildings, it's impossible to really have the final 10% of the market rates completed while they're still under construction. So this is the proposal from the applicant in terms of the number of units in each building. And so you can see here that each of the buildings have at least 2 and some have 3 affordable units. And that's really the reason for the requested exception to that phasing standard. And again, that regulation is crafted with the intention of there being single-family lot development, not multifamily, where the request of the applicant is to have that affordability spread through the entire project site.
And if I could note the prior applications, and again, those aren't before you this evening, but identified the potential of having all the affordable housing units in singular buildings. I think this application is more in conformance with our objectives of spreading the affordable housing units through the market rate units. And so that's where the exception was supported by the Planning Commission's recommendation.
And this really reiterates the original recommendation that Brandon mentioned at the top of the presentation, which is that staff recommend that the City Council approve the annexation and ordinance and direct staff to return with findings approving the application, including the exception to the phasing requirements for the affordable housing. And this is a slide with the potential motion from the council communication, which is in your packet.
And if you have any questions for staff, I know the applicant is here to present and be able to present their time and actually have an opportunity for rebuttal for any questions that the public might pose during their public forum presentations.
Are there questions of staff? Go ahead, Councilor Sherrill.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Just a few questions to clarify what I think I understand. This is in the current UGB and has been for quite some time?
Correct.
Okay, and then it's in line with the comp plan?
Yeah, the comp plan is multifamily residential, and the proposal is R2 zone, which is a multifamily residential zone.
Thank you. And then last question, if this does bounce back to to the state for another decision? Does the staff feel like this is a solid application that will meet the needs of the community?
I think that I can speak to the second part of that question. I think the application is addressing the needs of the community by providing needed housing. The first part of your question in terms of bouncing to the Land Use Board of Appeals, that would be a decision for the Land Use Board of Appeals to see if the application meets all the criteria. I would note, due to the fact that the application went to LUBA in 2021 and 2023, in both iterations, LUBA did remand specific portions of the application and yet upheld other portions of having met the criteria. So in that process, the applicant had the benefit of those reviews in preparing their application and addressing the ordinance criteria that we have outlined. So in that sense, the application presented before you this evening does address the remand issues in terms of parking and street improvements, affordable housing unit size, exception to street standards. All of those have been addressed in this application, either by merit of the ordinances having changed or state law changes, or modifications to the application by the applicant. So I can't read a crystal ball in terms of how the Land Use Board of Appeals may review such an application on appeal, but again, the applicant has addressed all the issues that have previously come up.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Kaplan?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Brandon, just one question. You mentioned that Public Works has said that this satisfies all the utility needs for managing utilities in our city. And I note that there's a somewhat unusual, and I guess one of the questions is how unusual, circumstance where the development would receive water from our water treatment plant, but deposit wastewater, would send wastewater to Rogue Valley Sanitation Service. They considered that, I assume they considered that specifically. So my question is, did the Public Works Director specifically also say that that would not make it problematic to meet our, he's got this long acronym, NP says what?
NPDES permit.
Thank you, NPDES permit, for which we've been, had difficulty complying with for temperature in Bear Creek.
Yeah, Aaron may have further information, but my understanding is there's a pre-existing agreement for this area for all sewage to be treated by the Rogue Valley Sanitary Service. And as such, you're entirely correct that if they're receiving water from the city of Ashland, it would not be then pumped up and back over to our water treatment plant. Gravity is a big part of that arrangement. And as such, that water sewage would not be discharged through our water treatment plant, which is what we are obligated to address. I'm not sure if the Public Works Director has reviewed that question specifically. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to.
No, I was just going to make the same remark that you did regarding the zone and topography.
Thank you.
I understood from one of the earlier slides that 25% of the housing that is coming in must be affordable. Is that, do I understand that correctly?
There's a nuance in our ordinance. It's 25% of the required base density. So the required base density for the 8.53 acres being annexed, I believe, is 170 units total. That's a calculated density.
Base density.
So the maximum, or the base density as presented, and when calculating the 13.5 units per acre, which is the R2 zone, times the 8.53 acres, calculates out to 115 units required. So the 24 units does meet the 25% of the base density. There's another factor that, because these are being targeted to people at 80% median income, instead of 100% median income, there's an adjustment factor within our code. So the lower the income targets, the less of a percentage of units that you have to provide. I'm not sure exactly what it calculates out to. So if they were providing them at 100% AMI, area median income, they would have had to provide 29 units. But by merit of targeting that lower income level, they can provide fewer units to meet the standard. So
Thank you.
that's where
I
the
was
24
having
comes
some
from.
arithmetic
Thank you.
questions. And then my other follow-up question is that I understand that the recommendation is to approve with conditions of approval set by the Planning Commission. And I just want to make sure that the language in the motion that's been provided to us accommodates that, or is that something that we need to add? Is it laid out specifically in there, or do we need to identify it?
Yeah, so I think in your deliberations, when you get to that, if you see any of the conditions at the Planning Commission that you have a concern with, to discuss that. But if you are in concurrence with the Planning Commission's recommended conditions of approval, you would be, you could recommend in your motion to approve the Planning Commission findings as presented. In any event, we will be coming back to you for a second reading of the ordinance and adoption of council findings because it's an annexation. So most of the Planning Commission's recommended conditions of approval relate to site review. And in a sense, they have approved the project with those conditions. So unless you have any objection to them, you'd need to state that.
They're incorporated already, if I understand that. Okay,
Yes,
great.
and the findings that would come back at second reading would reference them as well.
Great. Okay, thank you to our staff. And then we move on now to the applicant's presentation. I will now ask the applicant and their representatives to please come forward to the podium, this front podium here. State your name and give your presentation. You have a total of 10 minutes. So please turn on the microphone in the front there. It'll the little button. There you go. And you'll have 10 minutes.
Is red on or off?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Bob Kendrick. Casit Developments LLC is the applicant's name. That's me also. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This is, I believe, probably the fourth time we've been here. And I'll try to make this very quick and save your time for any other questions that I may be able to answer. Grand Terrace is a 210 multifamily apartment community by Casit Developments to address the city's needed housing. The project advances the city's comprehensive plan and satisfies the state of Oregon's needed housing statute by ensuring equitable access to housing across the medium income levels of the community. There are approximately 14 different city ordinances in the application that are applicable to the request, and they're all met. These are listed on the cover page of the submittal. Each ordinance has been individually evaluated with findings included to demonstrate full compliance or, where permitted, justified exceptions. Zoning, design, density, and infrastructure standards are met in full. Limited exceptions are sought only where the city ordinance expressly allows flexibility. Each is supported by findings showing equivalent or superior outcomes in design, safety, and community benefits. The application does not request deviations where ordinances prohibit them. The site design meets required setbacks, open space ratios, and stormwater standards. Public utilities, infrastructure are designed to meet city engineering standards. The inclusion of the affordable housing units as required are included throughout the development and equally spread throughout all 10 buildings. No affordable unit is any different than a market unit. For connectivity, full off-site improvements, including sidewalks, bike lanes, bus stops, transit plaza, and safe pedestrian-controlled crosswalks are included. Bike parking and charging stations are included at all units. EV charging stations are designed on the project too. Parking is reduced, but sustainable mobility features of the car sharing will be included in development that will make automobiles available for everyone at a substantially lower cost than personal ownership. City staff conducted a detailed review and issued recommendations for approval based on compliance with local and state housing goals. The Planning Commission held a public hearing, reviewed the findings, and approved the application, forwarding it with a positive recommendation to the City Council. The Council's action is to approve or disapprove the annexation. If the approved, the Council is to adopt the ordinances finalizing the project's entitlements. The benefits of the development. We're delivering needed housing that directly supports workforce and affordable housing goals. Promotes sustainable design, including EV car sharing, reduced parking demand, and pedestrian-oriented amenities. Provides long-term community investment, generating new housing supply and tax base without overburdening city services. Reflects responsible growth consistent with the city's vision and Oregon's statewide holding objections. In conclusion, Grand Terrace meets or exceeds every applicable city and state requirement. The application represents a thoughtful, balanced approach to housing development, one that addresses affordability, sustainability, and livability. Casit Developments respectfully request City Council to approve the annexation and adoption of the ordinance to move forward with the community's investment. In short, the project meets the ordinances, fulfills the state's needed housing statutes, and reflects the city's vision for a balanced growth. Thank you. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. And if I saved any time, I'll like to reserve that for any rebuttals.
You'll have time for a rebuttal.
Thank you.
Any questions of the applicant? Okay, no questions? Oh, Councilor Sherrill.
Yeah, thank you. If approved, when would you plan to break ground and when would you see completion?
Well, we would hope to start probably the third quarter of next year.
And then the projected construction for all phases?
Projected completion and renting would possibly be under a year. This isn't my first large project like this. So there would be a phasing, but the phasing would be building and renting out at the same time. Our initial rents will be starting probably at $1,200. Our affordabilities are at 80%, which I think that's, I'd have to check with staff, but I think that's still at I think $950 or $1,000. Now, one of the things I don't think we talked about before, after the last hearing, we then came under the EFAC rules, which changed the project a lot, and we had to include a lot more landscaping, trees and everything, and it reduced a lot of parking. So we pulled out 24, 40, close to 50 parking places. But in the meantime, we're adding another feature, which I think is probably going to be much more beneficial, and I think the future, and that's going to be sharing cars. So we're starting off with 5 electric vehicles that are be shared by the community, and we'll scale that up in up to 27, which would basically handle the whole community. And the program that we'll be instituting is a sharing program of $200 a month that would give everyone a base use of 25 hours a month, and any extra charges would be $12 an hour. So although we're underparked, we think we can meet the needs. So we vetted that pretty carefully on how much a household would need on driving, daily sharing, using cars to and fro. And of course, we've got our bus plaza, electric cars, electric bikes, you know, we're ready.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions, thank you very much.
Thank you. Pardon? I'm sorry? Oh, yeah. The traffic engineer is online if anyone has any questions now, or if any comes up. So I just wanted, that was the message, I believe. Kelly Sandel is the traffic engineer.
Councilor Dale would have a question for the traffic.
Would it be possible
engineer?
for Kelly just to provide a little bit more context? I know Brandon in planning spoke to the traffic impact analysis briefly, but
Yeah.
sure would like any additional context that you would be willing to talk about.
She's here for you. She's in Bend. She couldn't make it over really this quick, but she's good.
And maybe to just kick it off, and I know there's only a couple minutes here, but it would be something like, can you provide just a little bit of a summary of what that entails for those that may be unaware of how that process works?
Yeah, I'll kick it off and let her pick it up from there. But usually, you'll hear a lot of the talk about there's going to be like 3,000 car trips out of there a day, but these are based on the way the studies have to be made. We have 170 cars, and we have, per code, we have 2 means of ingress. But the important thing is that the main driveway is fully compatible to meet all the cars on the project. And when you look at and talk to Kelly, she can explain to you the queuing on that, how many cars come in and go from there, and would utilizing only one driveway if that's where we keep them at. It's not this, when you look over at the coffee shop across the street and everything, you're looking at 25 to 3,000 car trips coming out of that driveway a day, and you don't notice it. So I just want to point that out so she can give you all the data on queuing, the amount of cars that will be coming out of the main driveway, and what it's like as far, particularly for the field of vision, the stopping distances, and how much time people have to react to cars coming and going, stopping, all the other things, pedestrians and everything else.
So, Mayor, I think I may ask the question of Kelly if there's any kind of rebuttal that needs to be done, because I know we're out of time.
No, we have plenty of time. The questions from council are outside of the
perfect.
the
Okay,
timings.
thank you. All right, excellent. My mistake.
Okay.
So that answered a lot, but I guess I would turn it over to Kelly and say, would you add?
She's she's the scientist, right?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, or good evening. Kelly Sando with Sando Engineering. So thanks for providing me the opportunity to provide a brief overview of the traffic study. So for an annexation project, we follow the state Oregon administrative rules, which are considered the transportation planning rules, which are very specific in how we evaluate an annexation or a zone change application. And with those is we have to take a look at what the impacts on the system would be if the site was to be developed out at its maximum potential. And as city staff said, we're looking at 13 units per acre. So where we're looking, the study looked at 250 plus units being developed, even though that the actual development will come in much lower. And what we're doing is we're evaluating the impacts of the site and comparing it to what the city's comprehensive plan and transportation system plan took a look at. The transportation system plan for the city assumed a growth of about 270 homes or 270 residential units on this site. So we're actually also within the transportation system plan. So we evaluated what our site driveways were going to operate as far as looking at ODOT's capacity. Does enough capacity to handle the level of traffic that would be coming in and out of the driveways? Is there any queuing issues? The longer cars wait to get out of a driveway, the less of a gap in traffic they'll take. So that presents a safety issue. We're well within ODOT standards for capacity and delay. And then also, can you make movements in and out of the driveway safely? There's the field of vision that you need to be able to see in either direction to make sure you can turn out of the driveway safely, and then also be able to turn into the driveway safely. And then we were asked to take a look at some of the adjacent intersections that are considered a higher classification and were evaluated in the transportation system plan. And we took a look at those intersections, and those intersections, even with this development proposal, or actually the annexation requirements, those intersections would still be meeting the city standards and ODOT standards for operation and queuing. So we've been able to demonstrate that we meet all of the Oregon administrative rulings for requirements for annexation and zone change applications.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Hanson?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Kenrick. It's great to see you back here today. One almost parting thought I wanted to ask you about. In our Transportation Advisory Committee recently, we've been talking about electric bikes and the potential for electric bikes to create a fire hazard within a multifamily structure. And speaking for myself, when I was talking with my home insurance, they told me that my electric bike was not insured. It would have to be additionally insured, and should it catch fire and burn the house down, I would have a problem because I don't have additional insurance for my electric bike. So I'm curious if you've heard about this issue and if it's on your radar and how you might address it. And if not yet, that's fine. But I'm just curious.
The CCNRs are written to not allow charging or batteries in the buildings, but we do provide power in stations and ordinance-specific bike parking. So those are all on the site. There's 21 units and there's 25 bike parking spots and charging stations outside the building.
Great.
So, we're fully aware of that. We don't want to burn the house down.
Yeah, you're ahead of it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Kaplan.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. There's a transportation question, I suppose. We received a number of questions in the packet, public comment about concern about egress from Ashland Mine Road in case of evacuation. And I wonder if you could speak to that basic issue and how that affects the traffic analysis and also any opportunities you might see to allow a second egress coming through an emergency only, not a regular egress.
I just got all this like 5 hours ago.
Okay.
But I know that's a tough one. How many cars can come out of there and come down their road? There was a note to me about 3 or 4 weeks ago that it was raised, and Derek sent me that, and they were talking about creating a driveway and coming through Grand Terrace and getting across the railroad. The problem, I don't have a problem with it. The problem is the railroad, but we can, and Kelly and I did have a brief conversation about that, where they would probably, if they did come into Grand Terrace, it would be where the playground is. So that would have to be relocated. And then the next thought I had for expediting it would probably is to relocate a driveway that would run parallel to the auto body shop. So we could probably pull it right out of the parking lot. So it would be a straight shot out from behind the project, getting across the railroads. The next one, I did tell Derek, the first time I heard about this, I said, well, I know it's going to take you years to get approval from the railroad. They probably won't even take a call for a couple of years. But I did look into it. There are items that we would store that you could build a crossing on those tracks in 15 minutes, and it would be all portable. So to me, I don't really care about the railroad. If I had to get out, I'll drive across it. But we could facilitate it. We just have to do some different engineering on the road and relocating a playground. And I responded to Derek on that right away, and I don't know if the community heard that. But that's what it was. There is a way.
Great, thanks. I think the community heard you just now. So thank you.
Good.
Any other questions of the applicant? Great, thank you very much.
Thanks.
We now move on to public testimony. I will now call forward those who wish to provide testimony and who have provided a speaker request form to the city recorder. These are the additionals. And each person gets 5 minutes, correct? So we have quite a few people who have signed up to speak this evening, so I just ask that the next person in line be in position behind, and I will continue to read the names a couple ahead of time so you know when you're being called forward. Each of you will have 5 minutes to summarize your written comments. Please come to the podium, state your name, and make any comments you may have for the council regarding the application. The first speaker is Mary Dorsch, followed by Sean Van Osdal, and then Morgan Strickland. I have Morgan Strickland and Marty Eldridge on the same sheet. So each of them will come up separately, and that's the order we'll start with. And the same rules or the same structure applies to this testimony. You'll stand to the podium unless you need a microphone brought to you, and your timing will indicate when you have 20 seconds left of your 5 minutes. And then when the buzzer goes at the conclusion of that and the light goes red, that's when you need to be complete with your statement. Go ahead and come forward, Mary Dorsch, and go ahead and pull up that microphone if you need to so we can hear you. Thank you.
Well, I'm a resident of Ashland, and I'm up on Ashland Mine Road, so this would affect us, I think, dramatically with the traffic. We are already in a bottleneck for fire, and we are a fire-wise community, and that's my biggest concern. And the construction, the trucks that go up and down the road, it's already hard enough to get by another car, let alone trucks. So it just adds to our concern because we are fire-wise about fire and about the increasing the population. And I, for one, am so for building affordable housing. I just think it needs to be in a better place because our access to and from the Ashland Mine Road, if they come up North Main Street, it's going to be disastrous. And I'd like the state, before we even start with this project, to increase the size of Bear Creek Bridge. And our road diet, we learned so well in the Alameda fire that there is, if you don't get out in time, you're not going to get out. So I would love to have them tell us that they would have more annexing of roads in and out and not just North Main. I think it's an admirable project. I just object to having it where they want to put it. And I do not agree that we should annex into the city at all for this project. So thank you.
Thank you. Sean Van Osdal.
Good evening, City Council members and Mayor Graham, citizens and neighbors. Thank you for having me. My name is Sean Van Osdal. I have lived in Ashland for more than 45 years. Of those 45 years, 37 of those years, I have lived on Frank Hill Road, which is a road that's accessed by Ashland Mine Road. My wife, Catherine, and I have walked around the neighborhood talking to our fellow neighbors in regards to the Grand Terrace project. With all the conversations we've had in our neighborhood, I have not found one neighbor who is in agreement and total opposition, 100% opposition to this project. Now, I heard the council talk about community needs. Now, we are a community. We, of Ashland Mine Road District, we are 140 homes, probably in the neighborhood of 500 citizens of Ashland. I would like to know, do we not count? City Council members, I respectfully ask that you consider the quality of life of more than 140 households in our area. Please do not turn your backs on Ashlanders who pay property taxes, send our children to Ashland schools, and support the community in many, many ways. This proposed project will definitely have an adverse effect and impact on the quality of life of our neighborhood. We live in this neighborhood because we value a quiet and peaceful neighborhood. Please, City Council, consider this. In 2020, as we all know, Ashland was caught by surprise by a wildfire that spread many miles and destroyed many homes and many businesses. Our neighborhood is located in the forest interface. We are extremely vulnerable. To make matters worse, we have only one exit. There is no suitable alternative route that many of our Ashland neighbors have. By approving of this project, we're only making a difficult situation worse. So can you please tell me, how would that create a safer situation during an emergency? As anybody who lives in Ashland Mine Road area can tell you, turning left on Highway 99 is taking your life into your own hands. We all know that.
Sir, please keep your comments directed to the council.
Yes, ma'am. Why should we make an untenable situation worse? Studies have shown this project will bring 2,000 daily trips to our area. Twice, LUBA, or Land Use Board of Appeals, have turned this down and this proposed project due to these concerns. This proposed project is a blatant example of sprawl growth which violates compact urban form which Ashland Commissioner city members have worked to achieve for the last 40 years. Sadly, this sprawl growth will be located in our neighborhood. Other negative effects will be water usage. It's estimated 1.3 to 1.6 million gallons of water per year supplied by the city of Ashland. The wastewater will be piped to Medford for treatment, thus losing this valuable resource from our community. I thank the council and Mayor Graham and our community for the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Morgan Strickland, followed by Marty Elridge, then Brent Thompson, and then Richard Vilas.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Morgan Strickland, and I am here as well with Marty Eldridge. We represent the Firewise Committee for the Ashland Mine Road neighborhood. And thank you for this opportunity to voice our concerns. We realize there are many opinions and thoughts about the Grand Terrace development, but we're here to talk specifically about its impact on our neighborhood. We'd like to start by thanking you for approving the webcam located along the only evacuation path for our neighborhood of 140 homes. That was back in 2023. Thank you very much. Now, we realize the City Council has put a lot of thought into the proposed Grand Terrace development, but we don't feel enough attention has been paid to the impact that a development will have on our neighborhood's ability to evacuate safely. Our only evacuation route is very near where the development will be located. Therefore, as a condition of approving the Grand Terrace development, we request that the City Council require the Grand Terrace developer to develop an alternate emergency escape route leading from Wildcat Lane over the railroad tracks connecting to the new property. This will enable vehicles to pass from Wildcat Lane to Highway 99, providing a critical alternate escape route. A homeowner on Wildcat Lane whose property borders the proposed development has volunteered to grant an easement connecting Wildcat Lane to Grand Terrace property free of charge. You know, we read with interest Kelly Burns' executive summary of the recent citywide evacuation drill in October. And Kelly acknowledged the success of that drill was in large part due, quote, to the utility of opening the North Mountain escape ramp, end quote. We need our alternate escape ramp. That's what we're asking for. We acknowledge the need for more housing in Ashland, but not at the expense of the safety of existing neighborhoods. Thank you very much. Marty?
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Marty Eldridge. Morgan and I came together as part of the Firewise Committee, and my comments are echoing Morgan, so I'll just yield most of my time back to the council proceedings. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have Brent Thompson, Richard Vilas, followed by Echo Fields and Diane Paulson.
Hi, I'm Brent Thompson. We supposed to give our address still?
No, just tell us the city in which you reside.
Ashland. I have nothing against the applicant, but I've been involved in planning in Ashland for 40 years, and my issue is this project's bad planning. And it's bad planning for a bunch of reasons, and I'll put my glasses on so I can actually explain what they are. So the first thing, the traffic study is invalid. It was paid for by the applicants. And the job of traffic consultants who work for applicants is to show that there's no traffic problem, but there is. It's obvious that North Main is often at capacity, that intersections are dangerous, and that aggressive driving is needed to access North Main from uphill streets such as Church, Bush, Manzanita, Weimer, Nursery, Coolidge, Woodson, Grant, Sheridan, Schofield, and North Main itself, which is a little frontage road almost, and from downhill streets, Bush, Skidmore, Hersey, and Glen. When there's a fatality, which there will be, highway departments call these deaths warrants, which means that there's a greater probability of corrective action for more safety. So why increase the possibility of, with 2,000 more, possibly 2,000 more daily vehicle trips, so there'll be a higher probability of, quote, warrants. So on the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, you know, they're necessary because of the transportation planning rule, but the only thing is that they're gonna slow traffic, which is already backed up all the way down to Valley View at times. It's gonna slow it even more, and it's just gonna impact anyone coming in. And for all those people who might live on Oak Street, a lot of the cars are gonna end up impacting Oak Street. I already use it a lot rather than go on North Main. In other words, the traffic's gotten so bad that Oak Street is my alternative route when I wanna get to where I live near Safeway. So the gridlock, there will be gridlock, and there will not be adequate transportation in the North Main area, and that will be caused by this project. That's why it has to be denied, because if this project is approved, there'll no longer be adequate transportation in the North Main area because of the rapid or rectangular rapid flashing beacons and just the load of 2,000 vehicle trips a day. And that's 10 vehicle trips per unit as calculated by planners, and they can quibble over whether it's that many, but you know, we've now got UPS, we've got Amazon, we've got the post office, we've got repair people, we've got visitors. Anyway, that's how it adds up to 10 a day. And from this project, if anybody has kids, there's no way their kids are gonna be able to walk home on that highway. I mean, there's no way parents are gonna allow their kids to be walking up and down North Main. It's a hostile, fume-spewing situation. So the rapid or rectangular rapid flashing beacons will allow pedestrian access, but it'll also slow traffic to give us gridlock. And as for walking to and from the proposed project, the North Main and Highway 99 environment, as I said, is hostile due to the noise and the power of the vehicles, and particularly the large trucks. It's a highway environment, not a residential environment. It's not suitable for children, as I said. And then the other issue is the toxicity of diesel and you know, automobile fumes. We're going to make that even less tenable than just the noise from the traffic. So it's just a misplaced project as far as anyone wanting to walk to and from it. So it's going to be overly auto-dependent. And as we know, public transportation's failing right now. So it's impossible to provide adequate pedestrian and bicycle access, and there is no alternative route, which is the Firewise people that stress that. And emergency vehicles will be challenged to get there in a timely fashion. My guess is that the talent Fire Department will actually reach the site faster than the Ashland Fire Department because of the fact that there'll be so much congestion coming through town. And this project lacks access to key public facilities such as parks. Parks are a public facility, and there is no park within the quarter mile, which is the stipulated Ashland municipal goal. So recently you had a meeting, a joint meeting, where you dealt with that issue, and this property fell off that map. So anyway, I gave you a list of things, and I'm done with my time. Final thing is, we're in a housing recession. We're not in a big hurry to do anything. We've got 7 approved plans in the planning office.
Thank you, sir. Your
ADU.
time is finished.
Sorry I went over.
Sir, I will have your attention. This is a formal public meeting. It is a formal public hearing. There will not be disruption from the audience. Everyone will have their time to speak, and we will be polite and respectful, or it will be time to leave. Sir?
My name is Richard Vilas. I live at the end of Fox Street. My address is Ashland. I don't have an opportunity to vote in your elections, however. I'm here to speak about this project, not so much this project. I want to speak about one of the things that Mr. Thompson spoke about a lot, is the highway operation of 99 and the bridge at North Valley View, which is really a problem. It's a problem now. If any of you have ever tried to move around in that area before 7:30 in the morning until 9, or at 4:30 in the afternoon until 6, you will know that the traffic backs up immeasurably now. If you can have any influence whatsoever on ODOT and whatever influence you have in your own operation, would you please see that the bridge over Bear Creek is widened so that we can take care of the emergency situations. I was front and center on the Alameda fire, and I got out because I moved quickly, and I'm at the bottom of that line. The other many places there that people live in that area didn't have that unless they were just lucky. I would really like to see 99 widened out or brought back to 4 lanes, so at least people could be moving that way, and that bridge is taken out as it exists now and make it wide enough. The fire department has said that is the place where we will have all the congestion. Because if you're trying to get out of there, it's an impossible thing, especially if you're talking about emergency vehicles. I also agree that we need the housing in the city. I have no objection. I don't really have an objection to that, to how he's put that together. I think he had some fine ideas. But I would really ask that before you say, okay, we can do this, please consider that the infrastructure needs to be fixed first. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Echo Fields, followed by Diane Paulson, Sheila Ayers, and Andy Kahn.
Hi, I'm Echo Fields. I've lived on that far end of Ashland since 1998, first at 1172 North Main, which is that very far tail end of North Main below Ashland Mine Road, and now on Glen Street. I am in support of the road diet. It has improved my safety in getting in and out of my little neighborhood next to the railroad tracks. And I strongly support the Casit application and the annexation. I have followed this issue really closely, as many of you know, for almost 6 years now. The current form of the project is vastly improved over the 2020 version. It is in compliance with our housing production strategy, and it's meeting all the relevant planning codes for the city and the state. And ultimately, that's what matters here. I wish that we could command ODOT and the railroad to do some things differently. I wish we could command Jackson County to do some things differently when it comes to fire prevention and being more fire-wise and doing more vegetation control, for example, in the interface. But unfortunately, the city of Ashland can't command that. As a result, it frequently takes so long already to get any kind of reasonably, somewhat affordable housing constructed. Huge source of frustration for many people in town who don't understand that the city has very limited capacity to command the private marketplace to do what we wish it could do. So when Mr. Kendrick proposes this, this project, and I have no official connection to him at all, by the way, I think it's an opportunity that the city should take. And so I hope that the city will support this ordinance. I understand that many of my neighbors here tonight are probably not going to be my fans on Facebook, but that's okay. And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Diane Paulson?
Hello, I am Diane Paulson. I live at 156 North Main, Ashland Street. And I want to go on record as opposing this development. Mainly, it's the traffic issues. I live right at the spot on North Main when the 2012 road diet narrowed it to one lane. I live right there, and we now have honking and rear-enders as a part of our daily life. With having those people at 210 developments there, there's going to be a lot more traffic coming into town, a lot more traffic going out of town. And I think that is something that's fairly irresponsible to be setting that up. Possibly under the guise that affordable housing is a great issue here. When I just do the basic math, I don't know the base density of this and that. 24 units of 210 units is 11.83% of the total. That doesn't seem like a way to get so excited about this project and ignore that traffic is going to be a big issue. I'm not that concerned about us. We are a little bit away from the issue. What I'm concerned about are my neighbors that live on Schofield, on Grant, trying to come out and turn left there. You guys have probably done that. It's pretty wild. That's only going to get worse when you add that development. And those people are not going to be riding bikes and walking into town. And I doubt if they're even going to take a bus. Sure, there'll be a few, but it's not going to be a significant number of people to say, this is great. They're going to use, all we're going to use alternative forms of transportation. An electric bike, and there they go. The reality is they're going to be driving. And for them to try to make a left out of that place, again, down on heading north, it's going to be dicey. The other issue is, I think that, the traffic study that the applicant paid Sanford Engineering to do that. It seems like it's that engineering company's job to give them what they wanted. To say, oh no, the traffic's horrible, you're never going to be able to develop here. I don't think they'd be hiring, and I think the word would get out. So to have the applicant pay for that seems like a conflict of interest at the least. They also compared 2019 traffic flow to 2024. We had a worldwide pandemic in 2020 to current. Traffic everywhere in the world is decreased. So to compare 2019 to 2024 seems ignorant, at the least to me. So basically, that is my big issue. I totally support affordable housing. I was lucky enough to have bought my house here in 1985. You could afford a home then, so I get that. I think there's a lot of property southeast, that we could look at. I think the developer's has a good goodwill in that he's trying to create a good, some good housing. I just don't think that's the right place to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Shelley?
Yes, Shelley.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
Shelley Ayers.
So I'll be brief. I've I agree with many of my neighbors' comments. I myself, well, my husband and I, we live part of the year in Stockton, which is where we have our jobs. We teach, right? So I'm not saying I'm here full-time through the year in Ashland, but my daughter is, and I love my daughter. I don't want her to have to face a situation where she would have to evacuate and perhaps not be able to, as happened in 2020, for instance, with the Alameda fire. Not to my daughter, obviously, but to just that's certainly a concern. So I would please ask that you sincerely consider the goodwill of our neighbors in our neighborhood, what they've expressed tonight. I certainly do respect them. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy Kahn?
Yes. I'm Andy Kahn. I live on Ashland Mine Road. And I actually do support this project. I would really appreciate it if we could work a emergency exit through the corner of their property with the cooperation of other neighbors and the railroad if they can, and temporary solutions if they can't. But I do think the need for both affordable and workplace housing needs to be addressed, and there is no perfect place. And this is also not a perfect place, but it still has to fit in somewhere, so I'm for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the council have any questions of staff, or do the staff have any matter they wish to respond to? Questions? So this evening we've heard a lot about from both the applicant and the public about the possibility of an alternate emergency exit through the property. Understanding that the railroad has to be a part of this, and that any sort of approval of that could be years in the making. We understand that there's a very complicated process. What is available to this council in this land use planning process to encourage that conversation to keep moving in the hopes that something could be developed, since it appears that the applicant is interested in helping to provide that, and the neighborhood is interested in having that? What is available to us?
At this point, the application is submitted outlines the development proposal, and that's what the Planning Commission evaluated, and it's what the City Council is evaluating. The concept of creating an emergency access through the property, my understanding, and the applicant could speak to it on rebuttal, is that there is land area that is not encumbered by proposed buildings, and I think he indicated the playground area and through a parking lot to get to a driveway. I think the salient issue, however, as you noted, is a railroad crossing. Through the city's transportation system planning efforts, and we're currently embarking on an 18-month effort to look at our transportation system plan in total, is where new road connections through city, new railroad crossings could be considered by the community and ultimately council. My understanding is a railroad crossing requires the closure of an existing railroad crossing, and so they have been difficult for the city to obtain elsewhere in the community, a formal vehicular railroad crossing. However, I think what the council could potentially consider is that the applicant work with the, that the I'm trying to wonder if an easement be provided for a future connection in the eventuality that a railroad crossing could be obtained. You do have a difficulty of private property owners that are not subject to this application, namely the property owner on Wildcat that has tentatively, from the public testimony, said they would be amenable to an easement. And again, the railroad would all have to be in agreement before the engineering and design of a railroad crossing, which is a considerable expense and would not be borne by this applicant as part of this proposal. They are substantive changes to the proposal to delineate that at this time. However, I think that the council may ask the applicant if they would be willing to provide an acknowledgement that no development occur within the area other than what's on the current proposal, in order to ensure that there aren't buildings located in an area that would preclude a future access if approved through a transportation system plan and acquired access across the railroad. Sorry, I don't have a clear answer for you with a succinct.
No, that was very helpful. I think that, we've heard tonight the very, very real concern about wildfire evacuation. It's the same concern we heard when we took up the question of the webcams, and there's there's a lot of streets that have similar concerns, and so as we look at development in those places, I think it's worth a conversation about how might we pull together the pieces to improve our evacuation.
Yeah, and I would note that, you had offered at your introduction that staff, if we had particular issues that came up during public comment, one had to do with the city's reliance upon a transportation engineer that was hired by an applicant. I would say that is always the case. The city does not hire independent traffic engineers to evaluate proposals, but they do have licensing through the state that stipulates how they conduct a transportation impact analysis and those studies. There are circumstances in which transportation engineers do tell applicants that this doesn't meet the merits for approval and that they would have to recommend modifications to a plan. In this case, the transportation plan was one of the criteria for annexation, both in 2021 and 2023. And when LUBA reviewed those criteria, they found that the standard of the city's prior approvals was met in terms of the transportation engineering. So, I know that doesn't pertain to this particular application, but it is a similar application with a similar transportation impact analysis. And
I would just also add that ODOT reviewed the TIA and concurred with its findings as well.
And the TIA?
The traffic impact analysis. So ODOT reviewed it and also said they agreed with its conclusions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just making sure we understand acronyms.
Yeah, and I think part of that evaluation is that Highway 99 is a major arterial street, one of the highest capacity streets that we have within our city system. And so when the comprehensive plan was delineated as where multifamily would be located on those major arterial streets was, I'm sure, part of that consideration back in the 60s and 70s. So, thank you.
Councilor Hanson?
Yeah, thank you. Brandon, Aaron, maybe you can speak to this. We are undergoing a transportation system plan, which is an 18-month process. It's going to involve a lot of community engagement, and I appreciate all the testimony. To some degree or another, we all have evacuation concerns in Ashland, and I certainly understand where the neighbors are coming from. My question to you is, at what point does a project like Grand Terrace show up as consideration in a transportation system plan? Do we, from a city's perspective, do we need to have this annexation and the plan approved and ground being broke before ODOT says, okay, now we're going to include this in our new transportation system plan? Timing couldn't be better, but I'm curious if we might miss the boat if we don't have our ducks in a row one way or another before we've started this plan, and we haven't yet. The TSP is happening soon, they tell us. This is ODOT really dragging their feet for years here.
Couple points come to mind. One, an application that's submitted for a land use approval is held to the criteria that are in place on the date that it's submitted. And so the evaluation of this planning action is based on the existing plans, the comprehensive plan, which we've talked about, but also the transportation system plan that's in place.
Okay.
So in terms of a council decision on the annexation, that is the basis by which you're evaluating the proposal. The other part of your question, in terms of people's engagement on the transportation system plan, I think you're absolutely correct that this project being anticipated at having 270 units on this site in the prior transportation system plan will be better informed by an approval for this planning action, because you'll have a precise approval for the amount of traffic generation that would occur on this property when we go through this 18-month process. The 18-month process does include a number of public engagement opportunities.
Yes.
And public hearings before transportation, the Planning Commission, and the City Council, as well as public open houses. And even if people don't live within the city limits, they utilize our street network, and they should participate in that process. The part I wanted to note is that part of the negotiation in terms of the transportation system plan scope of work was to identify a consultant with expertise on evacuation planning as a distinct element of the transportation system plan that in prior years has not been as much at the forefront. So I think it's everyone's expectation that the work that the city does going forward anticipates evacuation as a primary goal. And so I don't know if that fully answers your questions, but if there's clarification, I can provide it.
Well, it sounds like once we have this project approved, and because the application dates back years, it's already on ODOT's map to be considered for the new TSP.
Yeah, and I will note that the transportation system plan is a City of Ashland undertaking. ODOT will be party to it, but the city, and they're providing the funding for it.
They're paying
in terms
for it,
of
yes.
being party to it, they're paying for the transportation system plan. But the City of Ashland decision-making body is the City Council, and that's who approves the transportation system plan, not ODOT. It has to comply with state rules, and the transportation planning rule, as the transportation engineer identified, have to be addressed as part of it. But again, it's a City of Ashland undertaking.
And also, it's important to add that City of Ashland does not own Highway 99, nor do we own many of the other pinch points outside of the city, like the bridges and the.
That is correct. And so when it comes to those capital improvements for a bridge crossing, we could identify it as a need in our transportation system plan.
Yes.
But as ODOT jurisdiction, as their road, they would be the entity to institute those improvements.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, thank you, staff. At this time, I would call the applicant forward for their rebuttal. Please come forward to the podium and provide any rebuttal arguments you may have. You'll have 5 minutes. Go ahead and push that button again. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is all new to me, but I did tell you what I did talk to Derek about. I might point out that Kelly's still here, and we did do another traffic study, so a lot of talk was about, these are old, but we did another one 6 months ago, or 7 months ago, whatever it may be. Kelly can report on that. And of course, I'm willing to do what I talked about, but I'm in empathy with the fear, the community, but I have to disagree that Grand Terrace is not the problem. We will help to do something, like I already outlined. The question was asked of me earlier, how soon will we build? And if this should roll into a condition of the project, as far as putting a road through or getting approval from the railroad, that timeline will be stretched out many, many, many years. And that wouldn't fit with the application or the project because it would never be built. And that would be a big game stopper. But like I said, I empathize with the concerns. Grand Terrace is more of a problem solver, and there's a lot of problems in the community, and we're hitting a lot of them. And we've thought it out to where we can help a lot more in the future. And it's not just housing people, but it's addressing the climate, it's addressing transportation with our ideas as far as turning into not using the vehicle. And that's how this project's designed. We're not the problem. We're the solver, and we'll be more helpful if people want to talk to us on how we can make things happen and help this fear that's going on. If you'd like to ask Kelly about the new traffic studies and what the counts are today, I think you'll find it pretty surprising what's happened on 99. Thank you.
Any questions, final questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, I will close the public hearing. The hearing and the record are now closed. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mayor, I'm ready to make a motion if that's in order.
It is. Councilor Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve ordinance number 3272, an ordinance annexing property and withdrawing an annexed area from Jackson County Fire District Number 5 and directing staff to prepare findings approving planning action number PA-T3-2024-00011, reflecting the approval of the exception to the standard for affordable housing phasing at AMC 18.5.8.050.G4, and return for a second reading on December 2nd, 2025.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Councilor Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, let me find my notes. I'm sorry, I was writing things down as we were thinking about things. So I appreciate the applicant. I appreciate the testimony tonight. I too was getting a little emotional up here too. I heard the following. Things like, I bought my home in 1985. Trucks will be running all the time. Additional diesel cars and trucks. Traffic backs up so much now. I'm paraphrasing here, but professional licensed engineers and analysts lack integrity and are bought and paid for. In almost every comment when we talked about the risk, the word sprawl came up. And I was surprised that it worked, but I was on the United States Census website a few minutes ago. In the last quarter century, we've averaged an additional 59 people here in Ashland. 59 people have turned left out of the Dutch Brothers since I've been talking. And then the one thing that really bothered me was the comment that we're not in a hurry to do anything. There are 30 plus people on the other side of this wall that beg to disagree, that beg to differ. My children beg to differ. Your children, your grandchildren beg to differ. If my kids could find a place here in Ashland for $800 anywhere, just words can't. So anyway, we share a commitment to safety and livability, but we've got a responsibility to ensure that Ashland remains a place where we can work and live and afford to live. I understand the traffic concerns, but you don't do it by saying, no. I understand living on a dead-end, windy road. I get it. I understand it. There were trucks that were driving by when your house was being built. I understand. I was here. I was downtown. I was heading on this very road when Almeda broke out. I couldn't get back into town. I know where I live. And it's a coin flip. It's very scary. And this council and this staff and this community is working very hard on it. But you do it by working through proper design and improvement infrastructure. You don't do it by just saying, no, it's dangerous, but no, we're not going to build. Climate. You build homes closer. The workforce housing that we so desperately need is coming from 10 or more miles away. And we're reducing the footprint. Our transportation committee is in the process of figuring out all kinds of multimodal transportation initiatives. I get the road diet thing, I really do. I understand that's a discussion that needs to continue to happen, and we will have that. But the question isn't whether Ashland grows here, but it's how we guide this growth, and it's how we build one community here. And I don't believe that we further those goals by saying no. So I will gladly be supporting this, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilor Bloom?
Thank you. Yeah, I can't add anything more to that. I agree with that statement entirely. The only thing that I would add is that this is an important part for me when looking at these applications is the standard met, and it is. So I will be supporting this.
Councilor Duquesne?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate everyone coming out and sharing their thoughts. That's important that everyone shares their thoughts, where they live, their concerns. Something that was mentioned that I heard a lot was traffic, most importantly, fire. Where we live in this beautiful little municipality, I believe fire is one of the concerns of all of us, no matter where we live. However, when I think about the need of affordable housing, be it 24 units that are truly affordable, when I look at our housing strategic plan that our Housing and Human Services Committee and the council has worked so hard on, every house counts, every apartment counts, everything counts. I heard, is this the right place for this to be? Where is the right place? Oh, there's property on the south side, there's property. Where is the right place? I appreciate your concerns coming forth. I appreciate our developer. Your patience is remarkable because we've been having this conversation for years. And some things this council has no authority over. 99 is ODOT. The railroad is the railroad. However, I will support this. I am grateful that we can take this and run with it and be able to put some people in some houses. It's cold outside. And when it comes to fire, we're all working on that. We just threw some more money in our utility fees to work on wildfire risk. So we are a work in progress. I will support this. Thank you.
Any other deliberation? Councilor Sherrill?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the people that came in with safety concerns. Thank you for your commitment to your neighbor and to our community. I'm going to speak from my experience personally. I've spent a lot of time on that road. I run it almost every day up and down. I know there's a lot of traffic. I spent 15 years of my life dedicated to fire and life safety. I care about those concerns. That is a busy road. It's going to be hard to turn out of there. It's hard to turn out of there now. Depending on which way the fire's coming and the wind's blowing, it's going to be hard to evacuate, period. Yeah, that's a real concern. And I plan to live here long enough to expect to see accidents there. You know, that weighs heavy on me. I don't say this lightly, you know, and I mean, it makes me really think long and hard. Life safety has always been top of mind, and housing is so important. And there's a reason that there's no young families in here today. There's a reason if we look around, there's nobody that doesn't have a different color hair. because they can't afford to live here. And, we found by studying development and by studying housing that there's one thing that puts more pressure on prices, and that's regulation, usually brought on by good reason. This is not an adjective, it's not a name call, but NIMBYism is actually a belief that housing is good, but not in my backyard because of good reasons. There could be a bird in a tree that's protected, there could be traffic, there could be fire, there's always good reasons. That's why it's not a negative. We always think that it's needed just in a different location. Okay, this isn't a perfect spot. We have an urban growth boundary for a reason because all the easily buildable flat areas have been built. And we look forward with a comprehensive plan of where the housing is going to go as it gets to more difficult areas. This is one of them. I mean, it's not a perfect spot to build multifamily, but when I hear quality of life, when I hear those people, when I hear a good idea, just not the right place, neighborhood character, it's so peaceful here now. You're not building community. You're pushing community away. I could not be more proud to support this while still understanding concerns for traffic and safety and how long you've lived on your peaceful street. I understand that too. Thank you.
Councillor Hanson?
Well, I also thank everybody for showing up, and I'm very supportive of this project. Affordable housing in general is one of our community goals, and again, we have a population of people staying on our night lawn here that will have an opportunity for this type of housing when we build it. But right now, we're full. Ashland's full. Our transportation system plan is an opportunity to address some of our safety concerns. Out on the horizon there's this property called the Madrone Ridge that the City Council has been interested in, that the Western Rivers Conservation Group is interested in procuring and working with us on. Within that property, there's a road that goes over to Wagner that is very rough. It's a 4x4 road, but it is an egress and regress opportunity. So I know there's other opportunities within our community to help our evacuation situation. It's a problem, and I have identified it right up there with wildfire, but affordable housing in general is right up there as well. So hold me accountable and ask what we're doing about it, because we need to do both. We need to address our housing crisis, and we need to make Ashland safer. So I totally support this program, and I hear you, and I'm not going anywhere. I've been here for 30 years. I want to make it safer for my mom, for your kids, and we'll do that. So I really hope that this goes all the way to the finish line. I can't believe the tenacity and the fortitude of the applicant to be able to be here again and again and again. So keep it up, and I'd like to see some housing built. Thank you.
Councillor Kaplan?
Thanks, Mayor. And thanks to everyone who came to testify today, coming out here to talk with us about this. I think these are all hard issues. I think housing, getting more housing in Ashland has been a focus of this council and the councils before us. I was part of the group that worked on the housing production strategy, and it's very clear that multifamily housing is a housing type that we desperately need here in Ashland, more of it. So I'm very pleased that this would meet some of that need. I also was appreciative of some of the design standards that the applicant presented here, ways to reduce the number of vehicles with other alternatives. And I think I was encouraged by the openness of the applicant to really work with the community to find a solution, even an unorthodox solution to egress. There's not a good egress solution for Ashland Mine Road. We've been talking about it for a few years. We've done, webcam's good, other things, it's good. I love what you all have been doing up there to really make your own neighborhood safer, defensible, even even a place to huddle in the case of you can't egress. So, but I think that this proposal, this development is more in line of a solution than it is in line of a problem. And I think it's in that spirit that I'm really happy to be supporting this, and I will be voting for it.
I would just echo my appreciation for people coming to speak tonight. It's not easy always to step up to a microphone like that and say something that really means a lot and is deep in your heart. So thank you for coming and doing that. One of the things we have to think about is that we have existing regulations so that people know what they need to meet in order to move a project forward. And what we've seen this evening tells me that this project meets those requirements. What I was also pleased to see is the applicant's willingness to take a look at this wildfire evacuation concern, because it has come on this community very quickly. This is not something that was in place over the years as the zoning regulations and all those sorts of things have been put in place. We weren't facing the wildfire risks that we were facing. So what I am hopeful of is that the ability to provide that assistance and that alternate route is protected in the development of this project, so that at the point where there can be the agreement between landowners and the railroad and that sort of thing, and in dovetailing with our transportation system plan, that there will be the capacity and the ability to do something additional to provide some additional emergency exits out of that neighborhood. So I just appreciate everyone coming. I appreciate the joint concern of something that is critical for our community and something that this council is continuing to take up in a variety of different forms. So if there is no further deliberation, roll call please, Alyssa.
Sherrill?
Yes.
Dale?
Yes.
Bloom?
Yes.
Kaplan?
Yes.
Duquesne?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. So, Johan, I know we had talked about if anyone was here to speak about a particular issue, but I know we're past 8 o'clock.
We're past 8 o'clock, so we wouldn't be allowed the public
to begin to start it. Okay, so we will, what we need to do with our second hearing that's on our agenda is we need to postpone it due to our rules. We'll bring it forward again. And then our next item will be the second reading and adoption of findings, but I would like us to take a break. So let's take a 6-minute break, come back at 8:10 by that clock on the left side. I call the meeting back to order. We are now to ordinances, resolutions, and contracts. We are at second reading and adoption of findings for a legislative amendment to the Southern Oregon University. Hang on. Facilities Master Plan and implementing ordinances number 3267, 3268, and 3269, and number PA-L-2025-00016. Are there any reports from the Council of Ex parte contact or conflict of interest? Councilor Hanson?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I am a solar contractor that works for SOU, so in an abundance of caution, I will recuse myself from the conversation and the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Brandon Goldman, Community Development Director. The City Council's reviewed the Southern Oregon University 2025 Facilities Master Plan on multiple occasions, beginning with joint planning sessions with the Planning Commission and a study session with the City Council, followed by a Planning Commission public hearing and recommendation that occurred on June 24th. And the City Council then conducted public hearings and deliberations on July 15th, August 19th, and most recently on August 7th. At the August 7th, 2025 meeting, the City Council reopened the record and approved first reading of Ordinance 3267, 3268, and 3269, specifically adopting SOU Master Plan or Southern Oregon University recommendations and a red line revisions in a letter they provided on September 26th, 2025. Just to reiterate, Ordinance 3267 amends the city's comprehensive plan to adopt and incorporate the Facilities Master Plan as a supporting document. Ordinance 3268 amends the Ashland Municipal Code to ensure consistency between our land use code and the Facilities Master Plan. And Ordinance 3269 updates the city's official zoning map and comprehensive plan map in order to reflect the master plan boundaries and also recognize the zone change for university-owned lands identified for future sale and redevelopment. Together, these ordinances are now presented for second reading and final adoption in order to formally integrate the Southern Oregon University Facilities Master Plan into the city's official land use documents. And with that first reading having been completed, the revised ordinance now incorporates those changes, what was presented to you in your packets, and are now before council for second reading and final adoption, and also adoption of findings. So at this time, because there were changes made at first reading that weren't in your packet at first reading, it's incumbent upon it to be read into the record, which I'm prepared to do so, to read all the highlighted yellow sections into the record, unless there's any questions of council at this point.
Any questions at this point? No?
So I'm just going to read the ordinance section number from our Oregon Land Use, or Ashland Land Use Code, and the sections that have been amended. 18.36.020, applicability. This chapter applies to properties designated as SO on the zoning map. The Southern Oregon University SOU District implements the Southern Oregon University 2025 Facilities Master Plan Amendment with all conditions added by the City Council as adopted and incorporated into the comprehensive plan by Ordinance number 3267 on August 5, 2025. It can be applied to all areas now and hereafter owned by the State of Oregon, acting by and through the State Board of Higher Education and located within the Southern Oregon University district boundary, as shown on the SOU 2025 Facilities Master Plan Amendment adopted by SOU and approved by the city. The district shall not apply to properties identified in the zoning if transferred map and transferred by SOU and no longer owned by SOU. B, the chapter together with chapters 18.52 site design review, 18.43 parking, access, and circulation, and 18.3.11 water resource protection zones are the only portions of this ordinance to be effective within the SOU zone, except that projects to be developed within 50 feet of privately owned land, specifically not including alterations to a site such as signage, access, driveways, sidewalks, or landscape alterations, are subject to a Type 2 conditional use permit review process. In addition, the creation or vacation of public streets or public ways shall be subject to a mutual agreement between the city and SOU and all other applicable laws prior to the sale of university property or to the submittal of applications to the city for the construction of new buildings or the amendment of Southern Oregon University Facilities Master Plan. The university shall provide written notice to neighbors, property owners of record within 200 feet of the subject of the proper project and provide written evidence of such notice to the city with application submittal. In addition to that section, there's two other sections that were amended at first reading. 18.36030, permitted uses. Uses permitted outright and are all those which are directly and indirectly related to educational functions of SOU, provided that such uses are indicated and located in conformance with the adopted and city-approved SOU 2025 Facilities Master Plan Amendment. And then section 18.3.6040, conditional uses, and this is the section that had the most amendments as directed at first reading. This section reads as uses subject to the approval of conditional use permit per chapter 18.5.4 are as follows. A, any use, site design, or construction or alteration of the same not agreed upon in advance by the city and SOU in the SOU 2025 Facilities Master Plan Amendment. B, any projects to be developed within 50 feet of privately owned land, specifically not including alterations to a site, such as signage, access, driveway, sidewalk, or landscape alterations. C, construction that exceeds 60 feet in height within the SO zone, exclusive of the properties described in sections D through G below, shall require approval of a conditional use permit. D, construction within the University District bounded by Walker Avenue, Ashland Street, Webster Street, and Stadium Street that exceeds the permitted maximum height of 50 feet or 60 with the inclusion of at least 25% affordable or student housing shall require approval of a conditional use permit up to a maximum height of 110 feet. E, construction within the former Cascade complex that does not exceed 60 feet in height, 5 stories, or 194,000 square feet GFA, including associated site improvements such as signage, access, driveways, sidewalks, and landscaping, does not require a conditional use permit and is permitted through a Type 2 site review. Any proposal that exceeds the height or square footage limits established herein shall require approval of a conditional use permit. F, construction of any replacement building that does not exceed the height or square footage of the existing building shall be permitted, including alterations to the site such as signage, access, driveway, sidewalk, and landscaping, and permitted under a Type 2 decision. Any proposal that exceeds the height and square footage enumerated herein shall require approval of a conditional use permit. And lastly, G, which is unchanged other than the number or the letter reference, wireless communication facilities not permitted outright and authorized pursuant to Chapter 18.4.10, wireless communication facilities. So that is the entirety of the modifications that were made between first and second reading.
Questions? Alyssa, has anyone signed up to speak with us on this matter?
No.
Thank you. So if there are no additional questions, the floor is open for a motion. Councillor Bloom.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Brandon, for doing that. Let's see. I move to approve second reading and adoption of the following ordinances as amended at first reading on July 15th and October 7th, 2025. Ordinance number 3267, an ordinance amending the City of Ashland Comprehensive Plan to adopt and incorporate the Southern Oregon University 2025 Facilities Master Plan Amendment as supporting document to the comprehensive plan. Ordinance number 3268, an ordinance amending AMC 15.04.210-.216, AMC 18.3.6, AMC 18.4.7, AMC 18.5.2.020, AMC 18.5.2.030, and AMC 18.5.7.020 to be consistent with the Southern Oregon University 2025 Facilities Master Plan Amendment. Ordinance number 3269, an ordinance amending the adopted zoning and comprehensive plan maps to be consistent with the Southern Oregon University 2025 Facilities Master Plan Amendment.
Is there a second? Second. Councillor Bloom.
No, we discussed this at length and appreciate everybody's work on this and ready to move forward.
Councillor Chevelle. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Alyssa. Oh, Hanson can't. He's recused.
I knew that. Duquesne.
Yes.
Kaplan. Yes. Bloom.
Yes.
Dale.
Yes.
Sherrill.
Yes.
And thank you to our staff. I know this has been an enormous amount of work. We have a second motion here to finish out. Councillor Bloom.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. I move to approve and adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law for Planning Action PAL 2025-00016 as amended to reflect the Council's October 7, 2025 action and serve as the record in support of adoption of Ordinances 3267, 3268, and 3269.
Is there a second? Second. Councillor Bloom?
No.
Councillor Duquesne? Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Alyssa.
Sherrill.
Yes.
Dale.
Yes.
Bloom.
Yes.
Kaplan.
Yes.
Duquesne.
Thank you. We are now to unfinished business where we will pick up the resolution 2025-27 authorizing Parks and Recreation Department grant application. Sabrina? For some reason, it doesn't sound like it's, they're all kind of weird. Yours is working now, some are, some aren't.
Hello?
Now it seems to be working.
Okay.
Go ahead and try again.
Well, that worked because now Rachel's up here, so tactics. I'll let her go through this.
Thanks, Sabrina. So Parks and Recreation is looking to apply for a Oregon Parks and Recreation Department grant for Phase 2 of East Main Park. It's a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. It's a 50-50 match grant. And the project, if we get funded for the project, we would find out sometime next year, like February, March-ish. And then a notice to proceed would come the following early in 2027. So my understanding is that we do, towards the end of the biennium, we may have money in unencumbered food and beverage funds as well as some SDC money. But we still have to apply for the grant, submit it, and hopefully get it. So that's the overview.
Questions? Councillor Hanson?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Rachel. Appreciate the background, and I know that there was discussion among the commissioners on this Phase 2 to find a private donor, or there was lots of brainstorming. So I'm really glad to hear that there's another grant opportunity. Is this the same grant opportunity that we won two years ago?
It's a grant program through Oregon Parks and Rec Department, but the one that we were successful with is the Land and Local Government Get Grant Program, and this one is Land and Water Conservation Funds through the Oregon Parks and Rec Department. So same place, different funds, pots of money.
Okay, and then in terms of funding opportunities, you said that this grant would be awarded next year, so it's not like a this year thing. Do they require us to show proof of funds for matching, or can we win it and then as you said, look in F&B and...
Yeah, right now we have to say that we will have the money to proceed, and we'll have up to 2 years to complete the project once we get the notice to proceed. So the notice to proceed would be in January of 2027, and we would have 2 years from that date.
Okay, and remind us, if you know off the top of your head, Parks receives something in the neighborhood of $1 million of food and beverage on a good year? Or is it less?
I think it's less.
You can
I think
get
it
back
was
to me on
like-
that, but I'm just
I think
curious.
I just looked at it. It was around 885 was projected.
Okay, and that would cover this.
885,000.
Great, thank you, Rachel. Appreciate it.
Councillor Duquesne.
Oh, and good luck.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Rachel, for sticking around. I had almost forgotten what my question was through all of the rest of the council meeting. But the reason why I wanted to pull this, I appreciate seeing that it's a grant. However, it's a matched grant. And being awarded this, even in 2027, and I appreciate the question of how much food and beverage comes in, I am skeptical because if we don't have money in hand, I don't want to go after something that we might get. You said we may have food and beverage money, and the may have is the gray matter where I don't feel secure to move forward with something unless we have money in hand. I looked at the SDCs, and I think those were down, right? When we looked at...
Yeah, and my
Yeah.
understanding is that we may have around $150,000 in SDCs for that project.
Mhm. I just, for the sake of a grant, I think it's great, but just because all grants are out there doesn't mean we have to go after them. And so I don't feel very confident in supporting this, so that's how come I wanted to pull it.
Quick question still?
Yes, question.
Councillor Dale.
Yes, thank you, Rachel. Appreciate it. Maybe I missed it. I didn't see the actual grant application in here, but just so I'm aware, is there any interesting stipulations or anything that we need to know about relative to this grant as to what it would be used for, not used for? Or is it just a straight up?
So it would be phase 2 of East Main Park, which would be sorry, I have to look at this, a nature-themed playground, a community garden, a sports court, and a fitness court. And there are some opportunities for us to partner with some community agencies or some 501c3s in the area, like the Pickleball Club and things like that, to help fundraise. So our contribution could be less.
If maybe kind of a clarification, yeah. So what I was asking was, are the requirements of the grant written in such that Parks needs to do only certain things or not do certain things? Or is it, if the grant is awarded, it is open to whatever the commission and the department decides to use as part of phase 2 for this park?
Whatever we write in the grant, we have to do.
And so, well, sure, okay, so all of those things fine, but nothing, there's nothing on the grant side of things. Okay, thanks.
No.
And question just for clarification for everyone listening in. Phase 2 is something that is already on the plan for Parks and Recreation. We're not developing a new concept in order to go after this grant.
Correct.
Correct. Okay, thank you. Any further questions of staff? Okay, the floor is open for a motion. Councillor Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor. Since we pulled this, I have to go back and find it again. Okay. I move to approve resolution number 2025-27 to apply for a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant for East Main Community Park Phase 2.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the department and the commissioners finding money for phase 2, and this is a great opportunity. There's still room here to find a community partner to help fund this. The Ashland Parks Foundation accepts donations big and small. So like if there's a developer in the neighborhood that might be building and wants to kick in for one of these facilities, maybe they could get their name on it. I don't know, but I appreciate the opportunity, and I wish the department the best of luck. And I think the neighborhood will appreciate this facility improvement. So it's with that I support it. And it seems as though the pathway to fund it is reasonable. And of course, we'll look at it if and when we get the award and see how we're doing with finances at that point. But I totally support it for now. Thank you.
Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I support this due to, I mean, there's certainly a lot that needs to be decided, still discussed, planning, but the one thing I do appreciate is optionality here. So we still have a lot of due diligence to do, a lot of further discussions. The commission has further discussions, but this is something that provides an additional option should we choose to use it.
Councillor Kaplan.
Yeah, I'm going to be supporting this as well. I appreciate the work the department did to find this grant opportunity and put the package together. I think it's important to develop a park in this area of Ashland, which is there's going to be some new housing development there. It's already starting, I guess, just nearby, and hopefully some other places close by as well that are developable. And I think it's a place where there's not good park facilities. So I think the people that live in this section of town really deserve a good park as well.
Any further discussion? I would just add that I appreciate that that our staff is actively looking for this additional funding and has identified where that 50% match is coming from. If we were in a situation where we had no idea where that was coming from and we were going to have to go and find it from sources that had not been identified at this point, I would feel different about being in support of this. But I think these are the ways that we find the resources for the things that we have decided are important in our community, and it is a way for us to support the leadership of the Ashland Parks and Recreation Commission in developing out the system that this community has asked them to develop. So if there is no further discussion, roll call please, Alyssa.
Bloom,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Sherrill,
Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Duquesne,
No.
Kaplan.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. We are now to City Manager's report. Sabrina.
All right, just some highlights from the report. Code enforcement has been working with Bi-Mart and Shop and Cart to enforce cleanup in their back areas, and they've made significant progress. So if you've been by there, it's looking pretty good. We also had 8 low-income housing units approved as part of a 16-unit development at 300 Clay Street. So that's exciting. Ashland Fiber Network has been working to reduce their costs, and they have signed a new bandwidth contract that'll save the city $41,000 and give us 33% more bandwidth. So, win. We are aiming to open the Centennial Ice Rink on November 21st. That is partially weather dependent. Hopefully it'll be cold enough so the ice will be skatable. And then the culvert work around Ashland Creek related to the water treatment plant is close to, if not complete, and so the water is now flowing through that new culvert. So that is exciting if you're into water infrastructure. So, and then just as an update, at our next meeting, we will have our first quarter financial update from our interim finance director. We will be discussing the Avista franchise agreement versus a right-of-way ordinance and options for council to look at with that. We will have a health insurance history and review and preparation for our December retreat. We have tentative collective bargaining agreements coming up with our fire department, our police sergeants, and potentially our parks union. And then we will revisit the liquor license ordinance, maybe get to it next time. We do have a proposal from Aura for winter sheltering for council's approval in our newly renovated, almost complete building. And then we will have our audit committee members on consent for appointment so we can get that done and get the audit to you all at a study session December 15th, I believe, in December. So that's what's coming up.
Fantastic. We have now the other business from council members and reports from council liaisons. Sure. If they're, yeah, go ahead and ask a question.
I'm curious, did the chamber report on numbers at the Halloween parade? Everybody in my family is speculating. It seems as though we had a really record turnout.
So I have heard that we've had the most people we've ever had, but that is what I've heard. So I will have to get.
Okay, fair enough.
We should have it.
My 8-year-old agrees.
Yeah, so we should have it next month, I think. Account or some data around that, so we can get that for you. Yeah.
It did seem bigger. Councilor Duquesne.
Thank you. I had a quick question. City Manager, you brought up 2200, and I look forward to seeing what Aura is going to bring forward. I guess that's next study or business meeting. What is the status? How do we look over at 2200?
So last time I was over there, it was getting closer. It looks different because we put in new restrooms and all of that. And so we are still on schedule to be done towards the end of this month. We've had one supply chain issue with the heating unit for the severe weather side of the shelter. So we are working to rectify that with some temporary heating devices so we can make sure that we open in time, and then we'll have that installed once it arrives. So we are working with building and planning to ensure that we can get that occupancy certificate.
And do we, I know that when we were talking earlier, there was a question about whether we could complete the severe weather side while we were still working on the other side, or will we expect the certificate of occupancy to come at the end of November?
It's all coming at the...
It's all coming at the end?
Yeah, it's all...
Okay.
Construction's happening throughout all at the same time.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for the update. Okay. Reports from liaisons. Councilor Kaplan.
Yeah, I just want to report on the Housing and Human Services Advisory Committee Community Resource Fair. I was going to report on that last time because it happened on Monday, October 20th, before our last council meeting. It was really successful, 25 organizations and 75 individual attendees. Lots of good feedback, as there always is. Some of the feedback was that the networking among the organizations themselves was really invaluable. And some asked to do these events more consistently or more frequently. The people liked the Halloween giveaways that there were it's just before Halloween, so there were Halloween giveaways. And they all want to attend a bigger future fair. So congratulations to the Housing and Human Services Committee for doing that. The committee then had its regular meeting just a few days after that. It was on the Thursday. And they did a evaluation of it, as they've always done. They got feedback from attendees and from organizations, and we'll be using all that to make the event better next year.
Great. Other reports? Councilor Hanson?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Last month, the Transportation Advisory Committee looked at the intersection of, let me bring it up here, Water Street and Van Ness, and is considering alternatives to make that safer. And if you're unfamiliar with that intersection, it's where Van Ness and Water Street meet at the railroad tracks at the recycling center. There's a restricted view, especially coming up Water Street towards downtown. When you go under the railroad tracks, your view is obstructed to both the right and the left, and we have accidents, and that's also a highly utilized ped and bicycle corridor. So we're looking at options to either close that completely or make it one way, and we'll be soliciting input from the community, but we kicked around, the Transportation Advisory Committee kicked around several ideas, so keep your eyes and ears open for that, and if you have input, try to get it to the Transportation Advisory Committee. And also the bike and safety program through Rogue Valley Transportation has been doing a great job since school started with their new bike trailer, visiting all the elementary schools in the area. So I commend Mike and the team over there for their bicycle safety. And on that note, enforcement of e-bike rules and safety has been in effect for a while now, and we're seeing some better behavior out there on our streets.
Better behavior is always good. So the Public Safety Coordinating Council received a presentation from Judge Cromwell about the wellness court and the analysis of what is still missing in terms of our behavioral health services provision in terms of residential beds and kind of where are we still behind in terms of Jackson County and the different programs that we have there. So that conversation is continuing to move forward. And I just wanted to remind everyone that we will be receiving the annual report and work plan for the next year from our citizen committees, our advisory committees. We'll be receiving those at the second meeting in December, and that will set up the work plans for the following year. So I encourage anyone who is interested in serving on a committee, now is a great time to come on, because you'll be coming on at the beginning of the work plan timeline, and that's a great time instead of coming into the middle. So there are still some vacancies on a couple of our committees. I encourage anyone who's interested to please go and take a look and see if any of those are of interest to you and you think you can contribute to them. And if there are no additional reports, the floor is open for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.